Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Monday, so obviously Grumpy is in the house only because it's Monday, really. Otherwise, it was like a really good weekend overall. Pretty tiring and a lot more to go, but we'll talk all about that. And with us, as always, is Matush telling us to shush. You got a hangover or something, or?
No, I do not have a hangover. It's just an ode to the Scouser and our team. Good morning, everybody. Good reckless morning to everyone here.
Yeah, speaking of, by the way, tis the season, and is Cyber Monday is still a thing?
Yeah, I think.
Is it? I mean, it's not as big as it used to be, right? Like
No,
that was like a thing. Now they have like Prime Days and all that kind of stuff. So I
yeah.
don't think it has the old thing it used to. But still, in the spirits of the old days, if you do want to, head on to it's recklesscoffeeroasters.com. I mean, otherwise, if you just type in Reckless Coffee, comes up on Google as well. Just hop on. And honestly, what I appreciate about, I talked to Dan about this as well, in terms of maybe doing like a special or something like that for Thanksgiving. But really, they don't do the games of like charging stuff way too much so that you can run a bogus sale so that you think you're getting a deal. You're already getting a deal. So nothing makes a great gift like. Some coffee, by the way. So if you're looking for shopping ideas there from Matush, I know you are, but you'll probably give me some jewelry from your place. Never mind. Cyber Monday started 3 Thursdays ago, dude. And I think that's like
Yeah.
I like the Black Friday lasted 2 weeks. So it's not as much. I think the companies may be realizing that we can't put all our eggs in a basket of like 2 days, because if it goes south, the entire quarter goes south, kind of a
Right.
deal. But Alan is with us as always. Good morning, sir. Freaking cold here. I'm assuming it's like 45 or something like that in Houston over there. So he's freezing. And Ryan says, "Hope you had a good time in Indy." Yes. Congrats on being tall.
Who spilled the beans?
Wait, hold on. What is he
Who's
talking about?
I
What
don't
is he
know.
talking about?
Who said it? Who said it? Who said
I
it?
don't know. Maybe he's stalking you on the internet or something. Maybe he has like a little shrine of like nothing but your pictures from like the internet. Indy was really a lot of fun. Small curveball because the drive was longer than I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
I know why I thought it was just 2 hours, because we were talking
see?
about it in the post match. It was like three hours and 15 or something like that, somewhere around there. But it's still not too shabby. But yeah, we had like a great time. A lot smaller than I thought it would be. But shout out to Jordan Green over here, by the way, from the folks in Indy as well. He gave us some pretty solid recommendations that we followed for the most parts in terms of like places to eat and stuff. Definitely not disappointed. Had like a good time. Then went to the game yesterday, the Colts game, and yeah, interesting. It's very interesting seeing the vibe difference of a dome and a Colts game versus the California San Francisco 49ers game. It's oddly different. And before I forget, shout out to my boy over here. He'll probably join us Wednesday night show, more than this morning show. I'm assuming he has school, but there was this kids at we went to this Colts pre-game thing, where you just eat and drink all you freaking want, kind of an ordeal. Like it's through Colts and NFL and all that. So we were there, like you're getting your food, you're sitting with a bunch of different people and stuff. And I know he was talking shit about me because, first of all, I was looking at the Fenerbahce game, like it was sitting on the table on my phone. I was occasionally taking a peek at it. And I thought he was talking shit about soccer personally. So I was like, because, we're like a bunch of like Colts people over there. But then I realized his mom threw him under the bus and said, "Hey, he's talking smack because your phone holder is a Liverpool one." So ends up being like the kid's a Tottenham Spurs fan. So he was in deep therapy the way it is. But it's odd. He's probably like 16, somewhere around there or whatever. But I find it very odd, by the way. I don't know if you run into this, but it's almost like when you follow soccer in this country, maybe not as much as it used to be, but it's almost like a special cult like you remember too. Like we should come up with like some kind of a sign we can throw at each other.
It's
Like you follow
it's
soccer too, like or
it's
something.
like it's
Like
like the Jeep Bros or whatever when they're driving by Jeeps and they do their little thing that oh yeah, I already see you're driving a Jeep. You don't need to give me a signal as well, but that's cool. That's fine. Yeah, it's a weird feeling, isn't it? It's one of those. I think Sully on the panel show, he came into the shop. It was 2 months ago or something, and he was wearing a Newcastle kit. And it's just like for me, I got so excited because all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, yes!" And this is if it was a City kit or a Chelsea kit, it's just a feeling of, you know what? I don't know if this person actually knows much about footy. They might just follow the teams with the money and the success. But because he was wearing a Newcastle kit and not a newer one by any means, I was like, okay, this guy's hurt, A, and B, he might be someone to have a conversation with. So I kind of slid it in there. And we had a great conversation. Obviously, he's been on the panel show, so I'm glad to see that work out. But yeah, it's a weird kind of comforting feeling when you feel like you can have a conversation with someone about. I imagine it's the same way for anyone overseas when they see someone wearing a Niners cap, right? Or if they see someone wearing a basketball jersey, like, oh, wait, you like, yeah, okay, yeah. And it's like this little safe space you want to get into because you don't want to. It's just like you got to get your feet wet a little bit before you go in.
See, I think basketball is harsh, but I can definitely say American football because I didn't know shit about it before I got over here. I really love American football now, but yeah, I felt it was like a really stupid game before coming over here because I don't know, like back in Europe, I'm sure like Sparky and Sergio, like all these guys on the other side can kind of probably this. It's changed now because of they're playing NFL in Europe and stuff. But before, when you didn't see anything, and then they would show, sports news, like they did like a little like spiel at the end of world sports, and then they were like, oh yeah, the Americans' biggest game happened, the Super Bowl or whatever, and they show this like 1 yard touchdown run, and you don't know what the hell is going on. A bunch of people they run into each other, and then half of them start celebrating. You're like, I don't even know what the hell happened. It's kind of an ordeal. So like, man, these Americans, this is like a really stupid game. And then you come over here, you find the intricacies, and you realize that hey, it's actually an hour game that takes 4 hours. But yeah, I love the sport overall. But yeah, it was so weird, like running into him, and then I think he was so happy because he was spilling his guts on like Spurs. He was like, if they had them, blah blah blah. Like he knew his stuff. I'm assuming like he plays and stuff like that too. But yeah, it was like interesting. And then I mentioned like that we have a podcast with the Spurs guy on it and stuff. And his mom was like, oh, he's gonna eat that stuff up. So like like gave him the YouTube thing. He subscribed, so I'm sure he'll be live. I figured I'd give him a shout out as well. Yeah, good times overall. Saturday obviously started. That kind of helped. Maybe I was going to use this indie trip as almost like a way to get away from the Premier League overall, which it did end up happening really. Like he told me that Spurs lost that morning. I was like, oh shit, that's right, because there's an hour difference and stuff too. But really didn't need it as a therapy. So I consider that Saturday morning a decent start to the weekend. How did you take it? Because I know you weren't in the post match, but what are your feelings like after the game?
I we'll take it, right? I mean, I think anytime you can get a draw away at Etihad, you have to take it. And I think now, especially being just towards the top there and having really difficult fixtures taken care of, I think I was looking over Brighton, Spurs, Newcastle, Chelsea, City away. All of those are done, right?
Yeah.
And we're only 2 points from the top. So that leaves United, Arsenal, and Villa as the only away games from last season's top 8. So this is what we said last week and the week before and the week before that. Like, it's exciting because we feel as if we can contend. And if anything, we'll just drop back to the excuse of, oh, it's just a rebuilding year anyway. We shouldn't have expected it. No sweat off our back kind of deal. But will it hurt a little more and be a little bit more disappointing the closer we get and the closer everything feels? Yes. So it's in that weird in between right now where there's much excitement, but also a little bit of contention just to hold back just a little bit because we going into the season, this is not what we expected at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that was maybe a way of softening the blow, because we kept talking about it, right? It was like we're almost happy to be here, kind of an ordeal.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at the standings now. I mean, I don't know. It's not something that I don't think anybody expected, and I don't know. That's because you do not expect City to lose points in maybe 4 out of 13 games, because neither of these teams, us and City, are in the habit of doing that, and that's not how you reach 90 points, 100 points, and stuff like that. So maybe that's why it's a lot closer as well. But yeah, it's pretty tight up there. Villa is obviously a shocker, so I'm sure Shea is happy. We'll get his take on Wednesday. But um it's odds. Yeah, I think the only issue I have, like, not that I don't agree with what you're saying in terms of the scheduling, is this team prides itself in losing points in fixtures it should not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's same thing year after year after year, right? It was Leeds last year, it was Forest last year, it was Luton this year. And it's going to be one of those things that hopefully we don't have to look back on and go, well, if only we hadn't fucking drawn against Luton, who have now been relegated into hell because they couldn't muster up more than 12 points in the entire year. It's going to hurt a little bit. But I think ultimately, sort of just like last year, if anything, it I guess it's fun because it shows the week-to-week potential of this league. And it's so hard to sit here and say it's not a farmers league when only one club has won the last 3 years. But having results like that is nice for the league overall. It just sucks that it's on our behalf, right? So I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I think it's always like it is because on our half is probably that's the problem. That's why, as much as I want to say the same and be like, hey, we're an advantage now because we got all these away games out of the way, I just can't, because I can't count on this Fulham game at home being like a guaranteed 3 points, especially. Well, I don't know. Let's hope Cersei's inside info is brutal. Out till January, and Jota for longer. I can see. I don't know what happened to Jota. I have not heard updates yet. I haven't seen anything. But when I saw Ali, and this was a conversation in the Discords, I think it was like Boas saying like 2 to 4 days. I was like, bro, you've never heard a hammy. Not only that, you've never seen anybody hurt a hammy. If you really think a hamstring injury takes 2 to 4 days, and the problem with hamstring always is, if you don't wait enough and make sure it's gone, it can come back
just re-aggravated. Like yeah, I think the frustrating thing about that is, of course, we can sit here and play the what if game, but that clearance was so unnecessary with the outside of the foot, and that because that's what we saw right after was him reaching down at it and feeling it. So obviously we can point to that going, that was the moment, but maybe there was a moment a little bit before that was the beginning. But it was so frustrating to see that be the result of that, because it was just not needed at that moment. You could just clear it with your left, whatever you need to do. And honestly, Ali did not have a great game. We, I think, are pretty fortunate that goal was chalked off. I understand that his arm was on Ali's shoulder, so in a way you are impeding the actual arms of the goalkeeper, but we could see that next week and have it not called, right? So I think
if it's not called as a goal, do you think it gets overturned?
No, because you think back to the Joelinton push with Newcastle and Arsenal, like that was much worse.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it was like two hands, like actual physical movement, force going this direction, and they let it go. It was like it's a pass interference call in the NFL at 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
but it was let go. So yeah, it was weird to see Ali struggle as much, and I don't know if it's because he also had the international games this past time around, but yeah, it was weird.
I'm assuming Michael Martin is celebrating another squeaking in Eagles win. This team is so goddamn lucky, man. Every time I think they're going to be losing, hopefully this week when the 49ers beat them. But yeah, Ryan says that's the goal. When it happened, I was like, man, if we get away with this, we're like, it's the answer is right there, right? Getting away with it, because I thought it was very soft. By rule, is it? Yes, because he does have that hand there. But man, it's yeah, it's just like ridiculous that we got away with that one. And that's why, before the game, I think maybe it was in the pre-match we were talking about, ref from Manchester, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, let's not even start talking about the ref till the game happens. And I think, if anything, City will probably have more to complain about the refereeing than we would in this game. Ali did not have a good. I am like so torn on this whole thing. Sider says he hangs on to the ball too much. I think it's basically that's the whole point, though, right? That's why we kind of pass it to him so that he pulls everybody, and then the more he pulls them towards the goalie, the better it is. And let's face it, their press was a lot more effective and better than ours. But I am like really torn. Like the goal, I think it was Ryan earlier. Besides the first goal, our center backs were great. And honestly, even that first goal, I realize, yes, you should lift your head up as a center back the moment you lose possession and, locate their guy and your guy that you should be worrying about. But I mean, the tackling that Trent does on there, and this is what drives me nuts now, right? Like you go online, if Trent does not score that goal, I think a lot more criticism would come towards his way of defending and everything like that. But nobody is mentioning that. I have never seen that half-ass of a tackle, even in indoor, you would beat the shit out of somebody if they did that. And everybody is like, oh, now this is why you should be midfield. This is why you should be playing here and stuff like that. I am just not sold on that whole concept overall. I'm not even sold on this inverted thing. I just don't understand why we wait till he does nothing to criticize the defending and all the things he doesn't do. But when something like this happens, we just harp on it and you just kind of like land. I mean, it was just is very weak of tackling. He's a right back, and he was the world's best right back. I think the less we take away from him and say you have to defend less now, you put this guy in midfield, he will never tackle. I feel like.
Yeah, well, because we've talked about him feeling less responsibility and kind of skating by in that inverted role, not having the need to come back and defend as much. And we've been talking about that being sort of an excuse for him not to be able to defend as much as he needs to, right? So I think, yeah, you put him up more, and you can't necessarily expect that. I think if that was a midfielder with the ball or a winger with the ball and made some sort of shifty move, I can maybe excuse it. That was a fucking defender that was skating around them like he was on skates in a rink, man. It was awful. And unfortunately, yeah, that lands at Trent's feet. And I don't think the center backs. I don't know. I didn't play center back, right? You played center back. I didn't. I was a keeper. I don't see the center backs having a possibility of any defending there in that moment. I don't. Maybe they could have done a little better, but I don't think they could have done much more than what they did. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
I know you're taught. I mean, at least I was taught, and and I was like sweeper. Like I said, that's a position that doesn't exist anymore. So even a bit easier. You just slide back then. But if you're a center back, you're playing there. The moment you lose the ball, your first thing is to locate where the fuck your guy is. I feel like they got caught ball watching a little bit, or they did not even think that danger was that imminent because it was Ake on the ball against our entire right hand side. But you don't expect him to kind of dribble past with that much ease and within like 2 seconds being clear on goal suddenly. It was almost like, oh shit, what? Like they're like, okay, they got it though. And by the time they were like trying to almost like getting settled, it just happened that he was suddenly like he was wide open and he could pass the ball. So I think that was like the bigger problem. Neither looked to Mark. I think they both got almost ball watching, and I think I don't know if they were in awe of the dribbling, but I think they were in awe of the lack of defending. Because the reaction, I know Gally was talking about it. I don't think the reaction of Van Dijk is on himself not reacting as much. It's more like the shittiest defending ahead of them right there, because he's not gonna, as a captain, he probably doesn't want to be like, you guys got to be shitting me over there. So there was a lot of frustration because it's something that maybe should not happen. I do not look at that goal and put it on the center backs. Could they have done better? Yes, but I don't look at that goal and be like, that's the center back's fault. No, I look at Trent, and I'm glad Sparky said this, right? Because if I say it, God forbid, I'm criticizing the Scouser on our team. But when Sparky said it, thank God, Sparky, I'm going to give all the credit to Sparky and say Sparky said it. Trent is very weak at tackling, and this is the biggest thing. He's a lazy defender. That is not, I mean, I think Michael was saying earlier that you can't use the word tackle with what Trent did there. That's just laziness. That's laziness. Like, that's a lazy ass tackle that you would like kind of like go off on a kid if they did that, because you're being lazy now. Just barely sticking out a foot. And it's not even like tracking back afterwards either. Like, you see the impact, they're like, I couldn't get it and stuff like that. And I don't understand how people can look at that, because that's laziness. That's not, okay, oh, he's so much better attacker. I don't give a damn. That's freaking laziness. If Soboslai did that, right, he's the first one gets passed, but at least he's trying to do something there. You would say, that's lazy defending by a midfielder. But that's like just pure laziness. How are you going to take that, put it in your midfield? I don't care how many number sixes you have behind them. We want our midfielders to defend. That dude is never going to come back. So if you ever say, oh, Soboslai or Mo, blah, 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 doesn't have that wing defending or whatever, you can just forget it. If you put Trent as like an attacking mid on the right-hand side or something like that, you better park that right back's ass back there and never push him up, because he's never going to come back.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think what's most frustrating is that we've seen glimpses of him having great moments defensively and making great tackles defensively, but they are so rare because he's just so focused on the opposite end of the field that we sometimes forget that he can tackle and he can defend well in moments if he is switched on. The problem is most of the time he is switched off. And so I think that's the most difficult thing to swallow. And given, last week I had that realization of how not young he is anymore. And obviously he's won everything under the sun. So I don't know if it's a case of, obviously he loves the club and he loves to play and he wants to be the greatest to play just based off what he says. But you see his body language and mentally sometimes it just seems like he doesn't care about playing at all. And it's sort of a weird dynamic to watch, because on one hand he is emulating this person that he wants to be, but on 2 seconds later he's dropping his head, lowering his shoulders, and he's like, whatever. So it's a weird situation.
Ryan says they definitely pushed their left side. Overall, I'm okay with Trent besides the goal. Actually impressed with how he dealt with Doku. I honestly give a lot of credit to that. He said, I'm not a Trent apologist. I don't know. That sounded like it. Hold on. Let me. No, overall, he did as well as he could, apart from a few times against Doku. I think over there, the credit has to go. I think I put a lot of credit to Mo for how much he was tracking back. I'm sure this was something that was talked about. Normally, we're like, hey, you stay back, you stay up, man. When we get it, we're going to look for you, kind of an ordeal. But I never seen Mo drop back this much. And basically, Mo was giving a taste of the medicine that he gets every week, where even if Doku got past Trent, which it did feel like he could anytime he wanted, let's be honest. But there was somebody 3 steps behind. So it's kind of like what Mo does, right? Like, you get the feeling that Mo gets a left back. I mean, when you're a really good winger, because there's so much space when you get isolated that you can cut inside, especially if you can use both your feet. It's hard to defend. But when there's a guy like 3 steps behind who's going to come in and sweep off whatever you're trying to do, we were able to do that in most of the time. I agree with this. The good outweighs the bad with Trent. At times it seems like it's closer to 60-40 versus 90-10. I love it. And I love him too. But I just hate how a huge part of the fan base can delete the entire 40 and act like it's not there when we get the 60 over there, but then turn around and blame everybody else for everything else that happens. You gotta kind of acknowledge his deficiencies and not blame it on every, like I keep hearing this narrative that if you had a number 6 who would do that, and if we had this guy who would do that, Trent would be great. Okay, like why do we need like 8 other guys to make Trent great? How about this? Why doesn't Trent focus on defending? Because I agree with what you're saying. When he focuses and really like switched on and like says, okay, I'm gonna stop this dude 1v1, in most cases he's successful.
We've had DMs and center backs in the past, and Trent has had these same issues in the past too. Even when this team was clicking on all gears, there were moments of Trent's deficiencies at defending. And so it's not just hey, right now we're missing a couple pieces, and that's why he's not as good as he can be. We've seen patterns of this throughout the years, and it's not necessarily, it's not something that's going to completely debilitate the team per se, but it does create more unnecessary problems. And I think that's a big issue of ours overall, is that we create our own problems unnecessarily. There's so many moments, so many goals that we've given up that's just come from just lack of awareness and lack of effort and lack of just being switched on more than anything. And so, yeah, it's always going to be interesting to see. The fan base is always going to have that person that they will always coddle, and it'll be like their little baby that no one can ever hurt. They're protected no matter what. And Trent just happens to be that guy for many. And the same thing we see on the flip side, where there's always that one guy that's always the scapegoat, and he'll always unfairly get all the criticism, just because there's no one else to criticize sometimes.
Yeah, and I would normally say, like Sparky says, Trent's a defender, so do your job. I mean, exactly. I'm glad that I'm making Sparky the fan of the week.
This is a weird timeline we're living in right now. I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. Right now.
But I mean, no, I'm glad, because in some ways, I would sometimes feel like, because he's a Scouser, the Scouser in our team, blah, blah, blah. And that's why he gets away with like a lot of stuff. But then you look at Jones, and he's the complete opposite. It almost gets like, in some aspects, gets over the top criticism. I mean, I'm not talking this game. He had a very poor game this game. But in general, like you're saying, there are some players where fans, they only see the positives they do and ignore everything else. And there's the reverse, like a guy like Gomez, who they see everything he does negative and never see like any positive contribution and stuff. So that is disappointing. Football Flasher says he lost his bet. Honestly, that's not a bad bet. I thought so as well, but to be fair, he did so much for freaking defending than anything else. Really think this was one of his better defensive games. Yes, that is speaking more about other games, that's for sure. But I think more than that, he had a lot more cover than normal from Mo. And maybe you can argue that normally he doesn't get any cover from Mo. But he gets a lot of cover from midfield. I mean, I'll go back to this. There's a moment in the game, second half, middle of second half. I even mentioned it on the Discord channel. They literally, I think it was probably after a set piece or something like that, because somehow Costas is playing on the right as a right back in front of Doku, and Trent ended up on the left-hand side. So we must have been defending from a set piece or whatever happened. So City is attacking. So they went by default to Doku, because that's what they wanted all game. They went over there. The ball came back because they were like, oh, shit, Costas is here. Trent is on the other side. The ball came back. They looked up, and somebody made a run. I think it was Walker or somebody made the run behind Trent. And guess what? Trent lost them. And then, I think the ball was too long, or he tried to cross it, or whatever happened. It's basically they were looking to see, and every team is doing this. And at one point, do you say, hey, man, you got to improve this? Or do we just give up on that concept? That's what I feel like most fans have, because it's not like we've seen this kid since he was an actual kid. He's not a kid anymore. So I don't even know if that's going to improve. You think constantly letting guys running behind you is a lack of focus, lack of care, or you just suck at it?
Just trying to play the high line so well that nothing exists behind you, because they're going to be off. You don't have to worry about it. That's where his head's at, I think.
He needs that, guys. Every right left back needs more cover against City. Yeah, I mean that's true. Especially on Doku's side. I mean that dude. But at the same time, he is. Adama Traore without the oil? Bit more
Doku?
shifty, maybe? Yeah.
I don't
Because
know.
his end product of crosses is Adama like.
I think he's better. I don't know. I think you're not giving him enough credit.
He's better because I think he's more shifty. But in
Yeah.
terms of his like end product, like he's like, holy shit, dangerous. Watch this guy, and definitely a fun guy to watch if he was on your team. But a little like Diaz-ish, where I feel like the pass after the move, once he
It's
gets
not there.
past people, and you're like, oh, and then it's like, oh, like like the crosses and stuff feels subpar.
Yeah, I guess, and I think maybe that's what Grealish offers more on that left side is a little bit better the end product. So I think setting up with Pep, he's kind of thinking what is his best option as are we going to attack this left side or do I want to finish from this left side? Because if it's going to be attack and try to send balls in and essentially win corners, right? Because that's a lot of what happened is just won a lot of corners from that left side because the ball wasn't necessarily great, but it was just kicked out of play. So I think what the plan is going in will often you'll see that difference between Grealish and Doku in that aspect. I would like to just mention the whole Trent being dribbled past 7 times. I don't know if you saw that thing, if you saw the compilation of what being dribbled past means. The fact that Van Dijk had that record for so long of not being dribbled past and seeing what dribbling past actually means is so incredible because it almost feels like Van Dijk was on this mountain of greatness that no one will ever be able to touch ever again. I don't know. It's just if you see the compilation and you see what the stat means by dribbled past, and you think that happens every game to everyone, and then you look back and Van Dijk didn't have anyone dribble past him for a year, you're like, how the fuck is that even possible? It's incredible.
So what is considered dribble pass? Like, can I take somebody down to the line and get a cross in, for example?
Yes. And that's what Doku did 3 or 4 times. And then there was one time where he cut into the box and played a ball, and that was counted as a dribbled pass. So what? I don't know. I don't understand what the rule or the stat consists of. But if that's what the stat consists of, and Van Dijk had 0 for such a long time, I'm even more impressed than before.
Okay, so these quotes...
Just saying that.
So I didn't know that, by the way, because that's lame. But I guess it's a bit easier as a center back to do that, by the way, not get dribbled past, as opposed to a winger. Because a winger is going to just try to go down to the line and then, cross it or cut in and play it to the middle. Whereas center back, you're probably trying to actually get past the center back, maybe. And then that's so odd that's considered a dribbling pass. I always took it as you cut and the dude is gone. He got dribbled past, kind of a deal. Okay, Liverpool chef says clearly, and this is what honestly probably my over the top annoyance with this comes from. So because these are actual codes from Trent, you probably get more out of me from being in the middle, and I'm able to show off that skill set as much as possible. My role is to go and create, control the game in the middle of the pitch, get the ball onto the attackers, play forward, run forward. Notice there is no back in any of these. Goals, assists, create chances, get people off their seats. Bro, play forward then. Because that's not midfield. Or that's midfield 15 years ago if you were a cam and number 10, if you will. That's why there are no more number 10s in, I think, top teams where like a Pirlo or something like that. No, that's not Pirlo and Pirlo. Like a player that's just in charge of you. Just create, dude. Like, you don't have to defend. You don't have to come back. You just create.
I'll say Pavel Nedved comes to mind.
That's not bad, actually. Yeah.
In that sense.
I mean, I don't know. Like number 10s in the past, I don't think you expected a lot of defensive rates from them. Okay. So what do you think about this? So here's my deal. I love us to sign Frimpong, and I do agree. I really like Frimpong's play. But then you sign a right back and you tell Trent, you do you, man. Whatever makes you happy. Because I don't think Klopp wants a midfielder that's just going to just do that. That's not our midfield. So he then has to play winger or something, and he has nowhere near the speed of being a winger.
Yeah, and then Saidu's going to still come back and say, well, where's the DM? You know, what we still haven't solved that problem. It's, I guess maybe in the long term, Frimpong at right back, Trent at right mid, and Sobo right wing would be the evolution that I could see with if Salah gets kind of aged out, right? But I don't know. I know a few years ago I jokingly said, hey, just sign Hakimi, put him at right back, bump Trent up, see how it goes. No big deal. So I don't know if going in that direction is going to make any sense, because I think still, unless the system changes, it's not going to work, because Klopp still expects that midfielder to come back and press and be able to play defensively. And if Trent's not doing it from that side as much as he is doing from the right back side, then what's the point of putting him up there?
But then if you buy Frimpong, if you buy Hakimi, and if Trent is on that side of midfield, you're basically telling him, hey, make sure you don't go forward, man, because there's no cover ever. Because nobody's going to come back. Like,
yeah, well, then maybe
not going to come back.
So maybe at that point, then you don't have, maybe we'll move away from having the right and left backs move up so much, and you just have Trent operate that space out there more and not have to worry about Frimpong going up too much, because he's never going to have to go up too much, because then you have Trent on that right side creating potentially and having someone on the right wing that cuts in. So I think this all comes down to what the system looks like, because you can only work with what you have. And if you're going to bring in players to play a certain way, you have to make sure you're going to play that certain way. We've seen players, Taku, and we've seen Carvalho, we've seen players come in that just were brought in just for the sake of bringing in. Sometimes it just didn't fit the system, and it doesn't always work out. So you have to make sure that makes sense.
I guess the point then is, why would Frimpong or Hakimi want to come over here so they can park in the back and watch Trent up top?
Because they're classical right backs.
Yeah, classical right back. I mean, Ryan says, don't get me wrong, we did give up only one goal again. This has nothing to do, I mean, most of this conversation really probably does not happen to do with the weekend overall. But this happens all the freaking time. Every freaking game it happens. So I don't think, this is what I guess my point is. We shouldn't talk about it when it costs us, or when we lose points about it, or cover it up by blaming everybody else on the team or whatever. Like, why are we changing everything? This is what drives me nuts. We talked about this in the past. We changed this enough to bring him, like, he plays more inside, he plays midfield, we get more out of him, blah, blah, blah. But it affects everybody else. Players know their skill set, and change is good. I mean, but then I guess you don't fit here. Like, you don't fit the system. I mean, changing 10 guys to make one guy happy makes zero sense to me. He is not that good. He's a great player. He's not that freaking good. Nobody is that freaking good. I mean, this has affected how Robertson plays. We have talked about how it affects our center backs play. We have talked about how it affects our midfields play. So, like, what are we gaining from it? Occasionally, we're going to get something positive. I don't think what we get positive is outweighing the negative right now. And that's, I guess, my most issue. But, most will wait till we lose points. And then it will still not be for Trent's fault for letting the guy run behind him. It will be, we should have had cover there. Or it'll be Matip's fault for not sliding back and covering Trent. That's the system, blah, blah, blah. It's always happens like, that's the system. Trent pushes up. There's no freaking system where you let your runner go. There is no freaking system. Stop kidding yourself. Stop making excuses for this kid. That's what drives me nuts. He should have a talk with Klopp about where he likes to play. I mean, it's like a kid's game, right? Like when you were a little kid, you're pretty much told, do not ask me where to play because you will never fucking play.
And no one wants to play defense, right? No one goes up wanting to be a defender. I mean, maybe some weirdo does, but most often.
Hey, let's watch that tone there.
Yeah, a weirdo. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Well, good point. Okay.
Because most kids, you grow up, you're watching these guys score goals, and that's what you want to be. You want to be the goal scorer. You want to be the one that gives your club that time. You want to be the guy that scores the game-winning goal in the 94th minute, right? You want to play up top. No one actually goes up wanting to make that last-ditch tackle that no one really respects as much as they should. And so I think sometimes maybe that can bleed into the mentality of, especially with someone like Trent, who is really gifted at everything offensively. It's another thing. If he wasn't as gifted offensively, he wouldn't feel this way. But because he is able to produce the way he does, it gives him the sense of, okay, maybe my skill set isn't being used as well as I think it should be, and that's just on him and not necessarily on Klopp, because it's a mentality thing more than anything. And the manager can only do so much for your mental capacity. Like you still have to, at the end of the day, you are kind of in charge of your own being, right? So it's tough.
But I think based on, I mean, like Liverpool Xavi's like quotes that he was saying, and I think that sadly says that his mind is done. He's not thinking of I mean, he says sign a right back who's going to play old school right back though, and a CDM. And yeah, I mean, I think Saido is saying it as well. No top EPL team plays without a proper. I mean, I think lost in this, maybe not lost in this, but more my focus is more on that because all the talk is about transfer MVP. But yeah, our midfield did get overrun, and you could see that Mac can be a 6 against the team this week against Fulham. Mac can play the 6, where we need to create more. They're probably going to sit back and stuff like that, but not against a team like City. I mean, our midfield, Jones had a terrible game. He did look like somebody who has not played in a long, long time. So maybe it was not the right move to throw him in there. Maybe we should have started with Gravenberch. But I think, the familiarity with the system, defensive work rate and stuff like that, we went with Jones.
I guess.
I mean, Szoboszlai didn't look great either. Go ahead, sorry.
No. I was saying, my question is, for Liverpool Xavi, if you do sign a right back and a CDM, who doesn't play? Do you leave Trent off? Is Trent not in the starting 11 then? And do you think that would be the best thing for him? Because I don't think that would be good for Trent at all. Given what his body language is like and how he reacts to certain situations. If you sign a right back and you drop Trent, not great for him mentally. And so then who do you drop then in the midfield? Do you drop Szoboszlai or McAllister?
Yeah, see, okay, here we go. Here's our best midfield.
That looks awful. I want to throw up actually looking at that.
Hopefully Andre is not watching this, because if I'm
no offense, Andre,
I look at that and I'll be like, fuck that. I'm not defending for all these fuckers.
Yes, let's grab a Szoboszlai who would much rather play as a 10 for Hungary. Let's grab Trent, who would much rather play as a 10 for England. And let's grab Andre, who has 0 minutes in any Premier League experience. And let's put them in the midfield where we're already being fucking overrun every single game. It's going to work.
No, I'm not buying it. I'm all with Andre. But if I'm Andre and I'm looking at your midfield, Xavi, and we're in a meeting, I'm about to sign the paper, and you're like,
and your left and your right.
Gonna be you, Szoboszlai, and Trent. I'll be like, wait, throw the pen. I'll be like, so who's gonna defend? Just me?
You want me to be the striker now? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't think there is no CDM in the Premier League. You can get the best CDM in the world. He's not gonna just defend by himself, especially the way we play. You need everybody in that midfield to play defensively. I mean, you bring Douglas Luiz, whoever you bring, they do have to. I'm not actually against Douglas Luiz.
I think we talked about him before. Yeah, that would have been great.
But whoever you bring, people act like it's not like Fabinho was defending all by himself. I mean, you had Hendo and Gini running their ass off nonstop defending as well. You had Milner next to him defending nonstop. You had all these guys next to him that nobody liked. Because they defended a lot and didn't attack as much. But this is not FIFA, and this is what happens when you don't do that and defend throughout, because people in front. I mean, defending starts from the big front, and if you eliminated 4 or 5 guys up top who are not going to defend, the 5 guys in the back is not.
Can you imagine the heat map for the players? It would look like it would look like an oval. It would start with Alisson here. And then just go.
Yeah, if you do, it would be like a trophy, like everybody is on top, and then everybody is on the bottom. There's nobody in midfield. Yeah, I just don't see that. It'll be interesting once we have an actual CDM what the midfield we envision is. And if we had an actual CDM, do we play differently? And it's not like, like I think Sir Z was mentioning earlier, it's not like, we're playing without a CDM. We just don't have a CDM that plays like the CDM that we're used to or is as effective. But I think, like I say, I think you can get away with Mac against like a Fulham at home, a Sheffield at home, and stuff like that. But not in a game like this. I mean, he did get overrun. But you saw with Endo, while when he came in, like he made that tackle, that's a CDM tackle where he gets a yellow. Yeah, but he came in what the 70th, and he saw that within like 10 minutes. So if you started with Endo, either he's getting a red card in the first half, or you have to substitute him after 20 minutes because he's already picked up a yellow. And I think that's the problem. He's a bit step behind. And I think he's not as good with these professional fouls as you would like him to be. Fab would do a lot of professional fouls. Some Brazilians have mastered this.
I would say it's not fair because Fab's Brazilian, and the Brazilian black magic in the Prem is unmatched. You can't just
like
go
Fernandinho
and expect to get away with something unless you're Brazilian. Come on.
Clubmate mentioned a multifunctional midfielder who can play as number 6. I think we're trying that, and it's not. I'm all for Andre based on what I hear. I haven't watched him. From what I hear and what everybody says, I guess it would be a matter of how we can adjust it to the league and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be like the issue. But before I forget, by the way, while we have this great chatter going, do not forget to give the like and the subscribe and everything to the channel while you're at it. Share, grab a friend by the ear, like I always say, and slap them around and say, why the hell are you not following American Scouser in the season of thanks? Keane, Vieira, Conte, or Rodri?
In their prime for one season.
But here's the thing. In their prime, I'm assuming...
I mean...
Hey, so, Xavi says he just subbed for us. So now your second task is to grab somebody by the ear. See, here's the thing, though. You're going to grab one of these guys. That's why, personally, I'm saying Conte, because Rodri's already in the city, so I would not want to. I would say Conte just because it's today's Premier League. Like, I don't know if Vieira would be able to play, or Keane, for example, would get a red card by the 20th minute.
Yeah, I think Premier League. Yeah, but do you think? I mean, he was a great player, so he might have been able to adjust, right? I mean, that's kind of the weird conversation you can have. Is yes, the era might have been different physically, and what you got away with was different. But if you had to adjust, the great players would adjust, right?
But I think you're taking away from what made him great.
Potentially, yes. I see the argument in that. So,
you know what I mean?
And I would have to agree with Conte. I think my order would be Conte, Rodri, Vieira, Keane. I wouldn't want Keane ever because, United. But that's
another thing. I think Conte seems like the most neutral in that graph.
Yeah.
Conte's better than others says. By the way, Shadi says he loves her background. Is absolute class. The good thing, what I love about the background is it looks like those people are mad at you. And they're because Trent is covered, so everybody's giving you the bill. Oh man, if they only knew.
My favorite. This is sort of like a Renaissance painting, right? Because every face you look at, it's perfection. I think my favorite is this steward here. He's just having a good time. Just having that was all of our faces when he was going over there.
I had not noticed that. That must be like a United fan in the city or something like that. Because he's like that's funny.
That's great.
Sergi says Conte too. In his prime, I think it's like an easy one. Just because I think he doesn't have. I do love Rodri, but I think Conte in his prime is better than Rodri as well. But Rodri has that. I mean, he is solid. If we had Rodri.
So good. Oh, my God. You could argue that Rodri's been pivotal for the last 3 titles. He's been the enigma of that team. You had moments of, I think Gundogan gets overlooked. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did for City. I think obviously Cancelo had moments where he was great, and then kind of just I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's maybe coaching somewhere. I don't know. No, he's definitely playing. Yeah, but it's just it's such a weird downhill that we've seen from him. And I think while KDB obviously is one of the best midfielders the Prem has ever seen, I think it was sort of like our title-winning year where everyone was clicking so well that it made everyone better. And I think Rodri was a big part of that for them. Whereas, for us, like we're the likes of Ox was fantastic because everyone around him was great. And it's easy to be great when everyone else around you is great.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, if you had a guy like when you have a guy like Rodri, you can't have a guy like Gundogan make those runs into the box and score all those goals like he did last year. I mean, he won them a lot of points last year. You can have KDB be in this Trent's dream role of like, I run forward kind of a thing. So he can do that because you have like Rodri to stop anything and everything and sweep it up behind you. That's why I think in some ways right now would have been it's a great time to, if you have like a really, really solid defensive midfielder, you have so much in front of him, like Mac and Szoboszlai and Gravenberch and like even Jones, who can make those runs into the box and who can put numbers up top with skill, not just run forward and like finish and create and stuff like that. And this will be like a really, really dangerous team. But I mean, we did have to build this midfield pretty much from scratch. So not too shabby for what we have.
Yeah, it's a rebuilding year, guys. It's a rebuilding
it is
year.
A
Calm down.
Let's not get too excited over here. Let's tone down the expectations. I think that's the thing. They have overperformed, right? I think we would say, or maybe have they overperformed, or do we set the expectations so low so that we don't get disappointed? This is a good one for the boys tonight.
That's a great question because you could argue that shouldn't have gotten any points against Newcastle. That was just one hell of a turnaround in the last 10 minutes, right? So that's 3 points right there. And then Luton, realistically, I mean, maybe we're around the same point mark as we are now. So I guess maybe performance-wise, we're right where we should be, but going into the season from our expectations, I think they've overperformed. But looking back, I think they have performed exactly where we would expect them to be based on the matches that have been played, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the biggest worry I have now is obviously Ali and as Jota as well. I feel like we have more, in some ways it's weird because we have more question marks than I would have anticipated to have. Because I really think we have a lot of question marks up top. And losing Jota, that doesn't really answer them, I guess, but punts away the questions. But who is the ideal person to have on the left? Who is the ideal person to have in the middle and stuff like that? Like, we never had that before, right? Like that top three kind of auto-filled itself. The back four auto-filled itself. And then we would just be like, the midfield three, who's going to play? And usually that was like, who plays next to Fab and Hendo, kind of an ordeal. But I feel like there's still a lot of questions. That's what I worry, perhaps, compared to the other teams we're going up against. I don't think they have as many question marks. They might have issues in the squad, injuries and stuff, but I think there are more answers in terms of like, that's who plays there. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know though. Like we have different, like we don't know yet who's the best in that position.
Yeah, and that's could be a nice thing, knowing that we're 2 points off the title and not really understanding what our strongest 11 is and dealing through some injuries on the back line, right? Not having Robertson for weeks, not having Konate for weeks.
Yeah.
So I think this just makes you even a little bit more excited knowing that if you can really pinch down what is that strongest starting 11, and once those gears start clicking, I mean, who knows what the ceiling can be for this club? Obviously not. It's a ceiling is high for the future, for the next few years, but I think we're just trying to understand what the ceiling is for this year. And it's kind of hard to figure that out, like you're saying, because we're not really sure of anything.
And that's the really dumb. I mean, I'm not even sure. Like when you said Konate, I don't even know if I bench Matip right now. I think he's been excellent.
He's
I thought
been
it was
so
great.
great, but is it because that he's had to be given Kanate's absence, or is it because he's just maybe he is just found some of his form again? I don't know, because you could play devil's advocate and say, well, if he wasn't needed because Kanate was healthy, then maybe he wouldn't be as good because he's not getting that consistent play.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I think Matip has always been this. The issue with Matip has always been you can't rely on Matip every single week, especially if you have midweek games and stuff like that. I think being able to rotate midweek has kind of helped him be more his own Matip, if you will. But yeah, he's been excellent. I thought like back line. I mean, this was like a decently played game. I don't think we were horrible or anything like that. First half, I felt like we were a bit overpowered and overmatched, but I thought, overall they did really well, and I thought we performed well overall, and it's a tough point earned. And yeah, I mean, if the 3 points was going to go one way, it was probably more likely to go City's way and stuff like that. But I mean, it's away, and not a lot of teams are going to be able to say that they went over there and snatched the points and came back and stuff like that. I mean, they have not lost at home in like last
it was 26 games or something like that.
Yeah.
The winning streak. Yeah. And I mean, we're sitting here. If you did not watch the game and you sat here and listened to us talk, you would think that we lost like 4-1, right? I mean, it just it feels like that. But in all honesty, fantastic point. That's it. I
think so too. It's a fantastic point. No need to be grumpy. But it's Monday, so it has to be, because it is what it is. It's a freaking Monday. And yeah, I got a lot going on too. It's going to be some crazy week. Obviously, we got the games coming on Thursday too. The games are coming thick and fast. I got a lot going on with the website as well. So stay tuned. Check out the websites, as we have like some stuff coming up over there new as well. And I'll be back tonight with the gang with our regular Monday podcast. Gally and Bickler, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. We'll be live then. As always, give the like and the share. Go grab a friend by the ear, drag them over here, and then so that they can tell us what they think as well, and get us with like a crazy midfield that Xavi gave us today. Sheesh. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting conversation tonight as well, I think. But and then as we build towards the week, obviously, we'll start talking about the last game. I feel like it's going to be more of like a heavy rotation. It's at home, right? No need to risk anything.
You would hope so.
Do you risk Kelleher, for example?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because now, he is your number one. Because if something dare to happen to him in this game,
Adrian.
Yeah. Do you do something like that?
Yeah, I maybe not, because I think giving Kelleher 90 minutes before going back into the Prem would be a nice thing for him specifically. So I think giving him a run out and letting him kind of comfortably. I know it's just Fulham. I'm not going to say that just Fulham.
Don't take that back. We'll edit that out.
It's Fulham, so we have to be careful. It's at home. Adrian's not in the squad. No, he's right. Yeah. So because
who's the third? Amatulaga? I can't remember the kid's name now.
Oh, Pataluga? Is he? Oh, I didn't know if that was the actual.
I'm sure we registered 3 goalies at least. And I thought like one game we had 2 goalies on the bench, I thought.
It is Pataluga.
Maybe we see him.
It's either.
But I do understand your point. That's a valid point of giving him 90 before you throw him out there. Honestly, that's probably the biggest. I hope Serzi is wrong, man. Like his intel is wrong. I was thinking 2 weeks for Ali. Like hopefully he didn't tear it. He pulled it. Because he kept going. It looked like a pull. And I was like, hopefully it's not a deep tear or anything like that. And it'll be 1 to 2 weeks and he'll be back, kind of an ordeal. But if it is longer, because man, Ali is a game winner, and it's hard to say that to a goalie, but every game we win, like including like a game like Fulham at home and stuff like that, there is a save that Ali makes while the game is in the balance that kind of like propels you to afterwards win that game. He's a game-winning goalie somehow, literally as well, because he's scored a game-winning goal. So there's that. But that's the worry.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think there's 3 kids on the squad. There's Pitaluga, Jarosz, and Mrożek, which
Look at this Polish names thrown all over the
well,
place.
Jarosz is Czech.
Oh,
It's close enough. But Mrożek is Polish.
See, if I said that, that could have been very offensive.
Oh yeah, no.
You said that.
Fuck you for saying that. Would be absolutely blasphemous. But it's Slavic, so Mrożek's gonna come in. He's gonna have his Dudek game, and we're gonna fall in love with the Polish goalkeeper all over again. It's gonna be fine.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm okay with the young kids starting. I feel like, we better not really rely on our goalie in this game. Even with heavy rotation, we should be able to come out and beat these guys at home. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting week. I'm kind of on pins and needles now. Thanks, Cersei, for getting the worry going. I think Jota, I'm okay with waiting because I feel like we do have alternatives. As much as he's been very valuable this season with his goals, especially when coming off the bench and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, exactly. So, while you're celebrating in the background, I'm kind of not as worried about it.
Celebrating that he got hurt. Fuck off.
I'm not as worried about that one because I feel like there are more replacements. There's just no replacement for Ali. We've been talking for months now about how we felt Keller is nowhere behind, nowhere near the Keller that we're used to of the past. So that's going to be interesting to see. But that's it for us this morning. Do not forget, as always, to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Go check out Reckless Coffee, our sponsors. Give them some love and thanks in this season. Get somebody quality coffee as a gift. They will be thanking you for it. But then I will be thanking you if you join us tonight at 7 Central, 8 Eastern on our podcast. Have an awesome week, everybody. Take care.